Our first topic is virtual production. My question for everyone is, how are you as a studio preparing to manage virtual production? One, does it need a new pipeline, or is it taking off in India, or is it still a small niche? What role would or could we play in a global virtual production business?
Hi. I think it's better to define virtual production. I think it's a fairly varied scope. A lot of people just assume virtual production is using an LED backwall and projecting backgrounds. But that virtual production is much wider than that. There's motion capture, there's pre-visualization. So all these aspects of virtual production are only going to grow. Yes, a few slower than the others, but we've seen investments across the board, and your regular sort of tools that are being used, such as Nuke and others, including obviously Unreal Engine, they're just becoming much more they can be used in virtual production, they can be used in the studio, and that's just becoming a one big unified pipeline. But yeah, I think we've seen recent investments in Hyderabad in mocap stages, and now of course with DNEG in Mumbai with their investment for the Ramayan shoot, etc. So virtual production is growing pretty rapidly.
I think virtual production in its full glory, I wouldn't say has taken off in India to that extent. I think we are still slower in adapting that. There are things happening in Hyderabad, I would say, at a very large scale. I would say that would be the only place where things with respect to virtual production in its full glory are being incorporated. In small pieces, I think everybody, to whatever extent that you can do is happening. The reason being is I feel that the virtual production to happen, first, it requires good amount of investment. So it has to come from the production house. If it doesn't come from the production house, then it becomes just as a commodity which is there. And then, because virtual production also requires huge amount of training and huge amount of knowledge on the, for the cinematographers, for the directors, and all of that, who then don't want to go through, and why they feel should they go through. And therefore, the adaptation of virtual production is very slow as compared to what's happening in the West. I think those, or the virtual production then is taken up by, artists, directors, cinematographer who don't have enough budget, and they, because there are a huge amount of things one can knock off with virtual production with little more prep and little more commitment at the early stage. So, people, productions with a lower budget is then, adopting virtual production faster. But to bridge that, I think some amount of commitment from the cinematographer, from the direction side, from the visual effects team side also, and if the production houses, like what you see in Hyderabad, jump in, I think that will definitely fast track the usage of virtual production in its full glory.
So as India, if you look at it in terms of adaptation of virtual production, it's been slow, and then very few success we have seen. And then as he rightly indicated, the Tamil as well as Telugu cinema is trying to adapt. And I think the biggest challenge is the mindset of the artist, the talent who have been part of the storytelling. They are not used to the technological thing. And the second one is most of the production houses, if you look at it, the planning is not been done in a structured fashion when compared to the international shows. So for virtual production, one has to be 100% sure in terms of the all the aspects before you go on and do that. So if you're not prepared and then you lose track of it, and then the technology, whatever you got, you will not be successful. That is one. And second one is the hardware and the infrastructure cost. It's also a bigger player in terms of the key, in terms of taking up the decision. So adaptation is slow, but I am sure like some of the new generation like who wants to try and then who wants to do that, I think like they are trying, they are being successful. Probably it will catch up, and then the ecosystem with AVGC setting up infrastructure across. I think if you look at it, almost all the states have got their own policies being laid down, and then they are also looking at putting up their just not only the virtual production stages, I think also creating the ecosystem of training and then skill development. I think it should catch up, and then it's a long way, but however, like it'll catch up.
For me, I think it's easy to speak as a last speaker, but I'd like to add that some of the aspects that Gaurav and Anish mentioned about pre-production and production houses, that's how we've approached it. We're using it extensively for a lot of pre-production services. We have our own motion capture flow, which we also extensively use for our production planning purposes. We plan our virtual cinematography ahead of time. We plan our lighting setups ahead of time. All these things are possible with our VCAM setup, and obviously the workflows are completely different from a traditional VFX workflow pipeline per se. For the final pixel output, no, we're not invested in any volume screens and things like that. We have another arm in the UK, which we Dimension Studios we partner with, and I think there's a big potential where I see is, especially when actors and actresses cannot travel to locations, or they have very small timelines and windows to shoot stuff. IPL is a great example. You see a lot of those, some form of ads being quickly conjured together and put together, and with backgrounds and shot, with the players being available only at a certain window. Those kind of opportunities exist. And if you are asking, can India participate in any aspect of it? Yes, probably there's a lot of shortage for, suddenly when there's a demand to produce a lot of this work, the Unreal side of things, but it has to be on set, on location. If you're looking at the final pixel work that is coming out, it's still not final pixel. Everybody wants to take it and tweak it later. They want to have the ability to do it later, but it's definitely, the application can be leveraged, especially for some promos and other things. So the film actors and the cricket players and celebrities are available only for a short period of time, and that leverage and how they can use this technology to the volumes especially to get it done. For pre-production, it saves a lot of cost, and people should adapt it if the production houses have the budgets to do so.
Thank you. So that brings me to the second topic that we all been kind of thinking, because along with virtual production and real-time pipeline, AI came along, which made our traditional pipeline somewhere better, but at the same time, it also came with a challenge, because it came with many questions from the production that how to integrate and what to do. So my second question to all of you is, what is the current state of AI in VFX? How is it being used in your pipeline? Is it adding real value? How do you see it evolving and impacting VFX over coming years?
Like every other industry, I think AI is like a tsunami in our industry as well, and it's just getting into everything. AI today, what I can speak for in our pipeline, what we started using AI more from a perspective of tooling and coding and making our pipeline more collaborative and robust, and providing our artists with better tools, even with a smaller development team. But that quickly became how we started using Gen AI and Media Gen AI for concepts, for design, just for communicating and understanding better with artists. And that's resulted in a huge increase in efficiency. And I think that's been the biggest difference. We feel, AI has already become a part of all the tools that we use, all the methods of visual effects, and it's only going to expand with every single day, I suppose.
I think if we, divide AI usage into two parts, AI as a tool, which you then integrate in your pipeline to make things efficient, and AI as a tool to do final output, of your film. I would say in the first part, AI is everywhere. I think and every week or every month there is new development which then allows you to integrate in various parts of your tool. I also feel that very soon for AI to be more useful, even the software, like I think Blender just announced AI as an integral part of Blender, and I think all the other software will have to integrate AI into it, because, and once that happens, AI no more remains something of outside. It's already then becomes part of the tool that you're using. It's the way I see it. It's almost becoming like electricity. It's everywhere. You don't question about it, or you don't think about it. You just take it as a fact that it's going to be there and it's going to make things more efficient. So that's the first part and first usage of AI. AI as a final output, I think for certain shows, when it comes to, let's say, in animation, preschool and certain look, people have started to experiment with AI, from start to end. To some extent, it's successful. To large extent, I would say it still needs a lot more work. But at the same time, any new technology that comes, it is not going to become, the best output within few years. It will have its curve, and AI, as a final output, is also going through that learning. And few years, it should be able to deliver, certain shows that will be from start to end, delivered in AI.
Thanks. See, I would like to bring in an analogy. I am from the IT industry. I think everybody know about 2K. Okay, I think like that was a dead end, and I think like nobody was aware like what to do, and then what is the next step as such. India is a powerhouse, scaled up, and then we have been able to take the lion's share in terms of doing the 2K. And that transition happened because of the talent as well as the skill set, what we had, and then we have been able to do that. We are in the same stage in terms of AI adaptation, and the good news is, I think like we have got talent who can understand and then who can adapt, and I am sure, like we will be able to be ahead of the curve in terms of the global adaptation, and then also bring in a good product line using AI. That's one part of it. The second was, if you look at it, we have been talking about AI, I think what is going to happen, how it's going to be there. And the transformation is so quick and then so adapted. I think if you look at it about a year back, I think even we were sitting back and then, okay, it will take its own time. I think like, I think we have to wait and watch. But the rapid transformation in the recent past has really, really propelled, and then everybody were on the toes in terms of how it has to be adapted and then how it has to be done as such. I think if you look at it in terms of our pipeline, not only in terms of the visual effects, we are also talking about production, project management, how it can be adapted, how it can be made efficient. So there has been a surge in terms of adaptation of the AI, in terms of making the decision making faster, in terms of making the productivity, and in terms of making the business run agile and then being adaptable. I am sure, I think like with AI, it's not a threat. I think like it's an adaptation of technology, how we can grow, build in volume, and then create much more than what we have been doing in the current session. So I think like it's something like which is going to be a boon for the industry, and then it's going to really help us in terms of making much more in terms of volume, as well as in terms of visually like appealing, and then it can be done.
So I'd like to break it down into 3 or 4 sections. One is the Gen AI side of things, where it's becoming easier and faster for concepts to be provided, and even filmmakers themselves type it and come back and say, and that's also advantage and a disadvantage. When I can do it in 5 seconds, why do you take 2 months to produce the output? question us in return, or it can be done so cheap and things like that. Anyway, Gen AI is very good for concepts and getting that process of identifying what we need to do. And if you look at it in terms of Gen AI also is very useful when if it can be used effectively, especially when Anish spoke earlier about budget-conscious Indian movies, where we have to spend a lot on establishing wide sets and environments, even to create it in VFX. If we're able to use smartly to get your establishing shots in, in a obviously ethical AI compliant software, and try to establish that and go into your close-ups using the traditional way, you can use it as a friend to cut a lot of costs. Or you can look at a lot of movies are challenged with some actors passing away and they have to duplicate it. Now there are various other applications. I'm sure there are some talks that are being scheduled, whether it's language adaptations. Machine learning has always been a part of our business for a very long time. Most visual effects companies were using it for efficiency gaining purposes, and obviously the term loosely AI is being used. A lot of these tasks which were already being used in bigger workflows and things like that. A lot of softwares have it in some form or shape, which we leverage, and we look at doing things in a more efficient, faster, consistent manner. When you are handling thousands of shots in a workflow, then it's all about consistency and uniformity for us. A great example which we leverage, I'm sure every software has a tool which we leverage, and the multi-shot workflow in Nuke is a great advantage for us. That increases a lot of efficiency for us. And whether it, when we look at various other places where we've tried to integrate comfy UI into our workflow, whether it's required for face replacements or faster building, using a machine learning to develop easier ways of digi-doubles and things like that. So those adaptations are definitely making things faster and slightly cheaper for the client. But again, a full-fledged Gen AI to, like Anish mentioned, for a certain product, for a certain price point, maybe at the end product, but the final pixel acceptable quality for the high-end work is not there. Again, you got to be very careful. Everybody's talking about, is VFX going to take away jobs and things like that. The big AI companies, the focus will be masses, not the VFX companies, right? For them, VFX is a very small revenue. When if every product which AI companies can produce is there in a phone with millions of people using it, that's better revenue generation model than a VFX industry which produces only a certain amount of thing. So an AI tool to erase a wire in a phone or erase a person in a photograph for people to play around has a better revenue for them than trying to build VFX tools. Case in point, whether it was Apple producing some editing tools or various other big multinational corporations trying to get involved. So we got to be cautious about what is going to be. There are going to be tools. There are going to be things that we will use to say that, and people need, I'm sure you have another question later down, probably about the talent and how they have to, upskill themselves and things like that. And maybe that's something that's a different topic altogether. But yes, it's there. It's going to improve your efficiency, how you use it. And for different products of different price points, how you're going to leverage it is something that everybody has to, figure out along the way.
Thank you. So to add to all of you, there was one more thing that somebody brought up to me for AI, that since India has taken over VFX, like if you think of VFX as an industry, India is a very integral part. Like we are doing 70% of world's VFX is what right now it's been considered. So they said, like, because of the kind of talent we have in VFX and the number of people we have, the R&D of AI is more cheaper for India than it will be for United States or UK, is what somebody from outside brought it up, because the number of artists we have. So as a studio, if we all kind of upscale our artists, we will be probably leading AI.
think
comes
I'll
to
take this question from this side, okay? So I think it's always been the case that everybody says India has big R&D centers, so it should be easy for them to set up, and it's never been easy, okay? And in terms of people wanting to do a product for a VFX industry, whereas a product for a Google or a Microsoft or, you know, much more cooler companies, the artists that we have not necessarily are the right skill set to do that R&D that you're talking about. Yes, they can use it as an application, application tool and things like that. But definitely the in where we see that we can play around with the tools and try to use it, we could become the testing ground faster because of the amount of talent that's available. You're right in saying that India has become the rice bowl of VFX service with, but that's also a scary piece, right? With all the innovation, if you don't keep in pace of all the innovation that's happening, then we are going to fall behind. Also, the flip side of things. So we have to keep at it to, you know, as broadly this goes back into the VFX business and how we, India leveraged the cost arbitrage phase of the business, just like the IT industry. From the cost arbitrage phase, it moved to, you know, the knowledge arbitrage. Right now, India has a huge base of knowledge with the huge amount of people that are there. Name any VFX company worth its salt. They are there in India, barring Veta, probably. And every other company is there in India already, which says a lot about India's capabilities per se. And now, if we have to keep pace, obviously the international companies will have their R&D centers here or elsewhere. But if you look at beyond those international companies in India, the other companies really need to find a niche in innovation to keep themselves relevant in the business in the years to come. Okay, so it goes back 15, 20 years back where, you know, Scanline specialized in water, maybe DNEG specialized in environments, or certain creatures were, you know, some other company, and so on and so forth. Similarly, there will be other innovations that will be needed in the next 10 years or 15 years in you adapting AI or machine learning and innovation to make things faster. Obviously, cheaper goes without saying, but that's what people will be looking at. But yes, India has to adapt and look at how to become more innovative. The cost arbitrage phase, in my opinion, is almost over.
Thank you. That brings me to third question. What should be the industry's priority over next 5 years to secure global leadership? We are actually leader when it comes to VFX, but we are still branded as a service partner rather than the leader when it comes to the kind of content that is being pushed out of Hollywood or UK and those markets. So keeping that in mind, what should be our industry's priority for next 5 years?
I'm not going to say something which is already not being done. I think there are efforts being made across the board from established studios, from government initiatives, AVGC, and other bodies, etc., across every single state in India, IICT being set up. But, you know, the thing is today, and just leading to the AI bit, and that's going to be the biggest impact, right? So today, you're going to have much smaller studios being able to punch way above their weight. They're going to be able to do things which traditionally required very large infrastructure and setup, which won't be needed anymore. So I think it all comes down to innovation. And I think if we adopt AI faster, because we have that advantage here, I think production companies here are far more open to using AI with, I mean, if you can call it the lack of restrictions or, labor laws, etc. around it. But I think we're going to see AI being used everywhere. And I think artists are going to have more opportunity to do, more innovative work than just your traditional, your roto paint work, which forms a majority of the 70% you were talking about. And I think we have to grow away from that, to move away from being, as you said, a just a workhouse where, you know, we're just churning minutes of VFX work to producing more innovative work. And I think you're going to see that as young students today who have access to such fine tools, have access to AI, have access to unmetered intelligence, which can, you know, basically no blockers. You're not getting blocked anywhere. I mean, any place where you're getting stuck in a software or in a VFX approach, you can use AI to get through that and push through it. And I think that's what's going to happen. Can say India's leadership, I think, you know, as we entertain, you know, we have to make sure that our content reaches a much wider audience. You know, we can see that with directors today who are trying to create these wonderful movies that actually reach to the whole world. And I think that needs to happen even more. Maybe there are 2 or 3 movies in production that are doing that now. You know, we should aim to at least have 10 or 12 movies in a year that's going global.
What should India do in the next 5 years? I would say only one thing, which is to make its own original content. And as Seshaprasad said, you know, and when I say about original content, the business that we were in a few years back where, you know, you could make more money if you have more artists, I think it's slowly going away. We're entering into the scenario where you don't need so many artists. Even just few guys with a great idea and good adaptation of technology can really tell a good story. And in the end, if you can make an impact with that good story, and even if you just put it on YouTube, you know, if it can really travel around the world, and you know, you can make an impact. So earlier, I would say even as earlier as 5 years back, if you want to make a big movie, you needed a studio. Today, you don't. And I think that changes a lot of things. And if I were to say, what is that one thing India should do, I would say just start to tell your own story. It will have its own learning curve. I'm not saying that you can just wake up and tell a story. Sometimes you can get lucky. But that's one thing that can change India, Indian artists, you know, and Indian companies, and whatever that we want to do. And we do have a lot of good stories. And also for the first time, world is also, you know, recognizing Indian stories and loving Indian stories, whether you go to the US or Germany or Japan, there is a market for Indian stories, and they love the stories the way we tell, because, you know, it's, for them, that's something new. They've never seen that before, and there are many examples of those, you know, movies as well as YouTube content that's becoming famous. So in my opinion, creating its own original content and adapting new ways of making movies to tell those original story is the thing that India can focus on and change, make an impact.
Yeah, here everybody talked about volume, services and everything, okay. And first and foremost thing, like we have to change the mindset of the artist as well as XRs. I think rather than being service oriented, can we create something new which is unique, I think which can be accepted internationally, okay. And for that it can't happen overnight. The ecosystem has to start from the artist, and the ecosystem has to be built by the government and then even the organizations, okay. And for that, I think from the curriculum, I think like the students, colleges, like we have to go on and create that platform of not looking at only from the service point of view, how we can create visually appealing, good international content which can be accepted. That has to be a mind share like which has to be brought in. For that it can't happen. I think there has been several infrastructure need which has been there where the government has to play a key role in terms of building up that. And I can quote certain example on how government play a key role in terms of the transformation. everybody know about Senshin. Like when we want to go on and get something like, oh, let's go to Senshin and then do that. I think it's about 4.5 decades back. Like it was a small fishing hamlet, and it's purely because of the focus and then dedicated effort by various agencies like they are now. Today, if you look at it, there have been clusters which has been made for any of the component, any of the product like we want to go, and then we can do that as such. Today, if you look at it in India, I think like there have been a lot of talented. I think it's been regional based, and then we have been able to do. We want to do everything to be done by everybody, but there are some key niche areas like which we have to go on and develop, and then which we have to go on and put it across. Might be in Hyderabad, can be some, or in Chennai, or Mumbai, or even to matter Patna or Kolkata and things like that. There are niche which can be created, which can become more differentiated when compared to the others as such. And second one, in terms of the AI adaptation, I'm sure, which I talked about, and I think like if we go on and build a good ecosystem, I think overall we will be able to bring out with a good quality product. I think in terms of the visual effects storytelling, like which can be far better in the international scene. So that's my take on that.
I guess I spoke a little bit on it already, but I'll just talk about, the question is about how the VFX companies should look for in the next 5 years or 10 years. I think they definitely should have plans to understand that the volume-based work is going to slowly reduce. They need to start becoming innovative, trying to find niches for themselves, and move up the value chain with various other things, not just being roto prep service providers to becoming end-to-end service, provide end-to-end services, as well as trying to become, and obviously people who are already doing end-to-end services, but what my other co-speakers were talking about, trying to produce content and things like that. And very important point, you don't need scale. Even a small team of people can produce great visuals sitting inside a small room. So that's a very powerful aspect where people can start doing a lot of things. Case in point, Godzilla, a small set of artists sitting in Japan could produce such great visuals with such low budgets and things like that, which become such a monstrous hit. So I guess more and more innovation is the key, and that's what people should be looking at.
Thank you. So next question is, how can government and state AVGC association aid VFX studios? Our government announced a lot of policies last year. So I would like to hear like how can they help VFX studio take advantage of those policies and like become better or whatever they are.
I think the manpower support where they're training people. Obviously, we can influence and make sure that is we can help guide and get a lot more smarter, younger people into the business. That aspect of it, and supporting filmmakers to try and do global products will definitely in turn help the VFX and the animation businesses. I think any form to, I think although the government's announcing a lot of policies, I think there is really a need for facilitators who really make sure that all that they're talking about is happening in terms of what we get in terms of tax rebates and things like that. A lot of every government is announcing it. Now, who are the people to go to? How do we go about doing the stuff is still not unknown in a lot of cases. So making it more visible, and I guess, and make it more accessible to people who can really leverage that and things like that. So, and I guess they're doing the IACT stuff and training aspects of it across the board, and I think they should try, and there are too many bodies, try to get it together and try to have it under one umbrella organization. That will be more useful, and duplication of efforts can be avoided. So I feel there are too many bodies right now. Okay, yeah.
I think as he rightly indicated, Ashish should be here, I think, who has been instrumental in terms of driving the AVGC policies across the state. And in the group, like we can see a lot of AVGC policies being rolled out. I think like every state has got their own AVGC policy. But the reality is how far like it's been implemented, how far like it's been followed, like that's been a major question. So fundamentally, like if you look at it from the government support, I think the Center of Excellence, ICT, what we have been talking about, it has to be real, it has to be implemented, and then it should encourage people to go on and use it. Then only the real results will come in. Incentives and things like that can be a secondary prerogative, which I feel like can be taken in the second stage. The first and foremost thing, like in terms of creating talent, I think like from the school and then from the college level, as well as in terms of building up the Center of Excellence in various locations where people can play around and then do that. I think we have been associated with a couple of institutions, and then in the incubation center, we can see young talented like who have been really enthusiastic and then charged to do something new. I think like I'm sure like if those things are encouraged in larger scale, I think like it can really help us in terms of the visual effects space. Thanks.
You know, there are a lot of capable people in government and from our industry also who are working with government to facilitate a lot of things. I think we all know what is to be done. In the last 1 year, as you rightly said, a lot of policies, you know, have been announced. And those policies, when you read, I think it does incorporate all the things that should be done. What should government do? I think just do what is written in those policies which is announced. That is, you know, more than enough, I would say.
Yeah, my perspective might be a little controversial. I think, I mean, all well-intentioned, and, you know, as everybody said, government's announcing a lot of things. There might be a big implementation gap. But I think the question is, why is there an implementation gap? My belief is that, you know, what we do is more akin to information technology than to information and broadcasting. So I think, you know, our policies to help VFX and animation grow should be pulled out of I&B and should be put under the IT minister. I mean, if we have leadership like a minister like Ashwini Vaishnav, I think our industry would be, you know, far ahead in terms of implementing these policies than it is today. So I think, you know, what, you know, the incentives that are required possibly for encouraging film shoots, for encouraging film shootings across different states, etc., might be very different than what we need, which is much closer to the IT industry. So I think we need to be more aligned in that direction. And if the government can bring our policies and the policies that they're doing for AVGC XR under the IT minister, I think that would be better.
Thank you. And yes, like we try to read it, the policies that has been given, and it is, as Prasad sir said, like it's very difficult to first for a lot of people to navigate. Every day there is a new document, and if they consolidate, that would help industry. Second, there are all of us probably, or most of us, with one exception of DNEG, that we get our work from either outside studio or our own outside brand, like that. So we are not getting direct work from production to leverage this incentives. Maybe DNEG is getting, so that was one of the things that I also had in mind, that how they can make this more wider rather than constraining it just to production and making it difficult for VFX people to utilize subsidies. Brings me to my fourth question. No, the final question. So with all this discussion in mind, all new technology coming, governments intervening for help and growing our industry, comes to the talent, like how all the talent in our industry, we can, for a studio, how are we working towards upgrading the talent? Like how, all the artists, 10 years, 5-year experience, and maybe even year or two, for them, all they have known, because to have 1 or 2 years of experience in our industry, they would have had to gone to school 2 or 3 years prior to that. So they are also very new to all the tools being introduced in the production, and they are also thinking with whether whatever they have learned in the school will be useful in future or not. So how, as a studios, we are planning to upgrade their skill and utilize it in, which is similar to the first question and a second question, AI and skill gap. So if every one of you can touch up.
I think to be a good artist, you just have to put in the hours. There's no escaping that. I think there's enough information available today for artists who really want to grow themselves and upgrade their skills. You know, look in Mumbai, just being in Nesco right now, there's ILM here, there's Frame Store here, DNEG's not too far away. If you say today an artist being in our industry has more opportunity than ever before. So I think it's just about them, you know, focusing and working and honing their skills. There's more opportunity than ever before. So if you put in the hours, you're going to get there. In terms of AI, you know, nobody can predict the future. Is AI going to make us obsolete? I hope not. But you know, but if you take a different perspective and you look at AI as a tool, as maybe a calculator, then I think, you know, your focus should be which parts you need to master and which parts you need to learn how to use AI to take you ahead. I think what's not going to change is, I hope not, but what's not going to change is taste, right? So today, how you develop your taste as to what looks good, what is good cinematography, good photography, and you know, maybe interesting action or animation. So I think those areas will not get outdated or taken over by AI. And that's what an artist will have to do, is exercise judgment. And that's what you would be more, you know, artists who can exercise, and that's what a senior artist is. And that's what a supervisor is today as well, even without AI, is somebody who has excellent judgment. So you're working across your career to get there. And I don't see that changing with AI.
How should we continue training our artists, and you know what happens with it? I think what's happening, you know, for the first time in the industry, that everything is just changing very fast. The only thing that doesn't change, and I think will never change, is what is good art. And what is good art and what is good artist, as Gaurav said, comes with the number of hours you put in. That will remain consistent, and that, you know, as an artist, you will grow into as you progress and as you practice your art more. As far as the tools and the ways to get to the good art is concerned, that is changing very fast, and I don't think any studio by itself can keep the pace with it. So the way I see it is that because it's changing very fast, for the first time the line between the studio and its own artists is also blurring, because, you know, can studio keep up with the pace of training its own artist? Very hard, because every 2 weeks there is a new tool. So the accountability of learning also falls onto artists as well equally, to be out there, because, you know, also for the first time in history, everything is available to everyone to learn. So what is your learning appetite as an artist will also define, you know, what you become as an artist. So, you know, studios will continue to do what they are doing, which we also do, but either the artists, you know, and you can see it in your team, whether you are a studio or a group of group of guys working together. There are some artists or some people who just want to learn more, and they will learn more on their own. And they will learn those tools, they'll become better artists. Other than that, at the studio level, you can, once somebody knows, you can make sure that there are show and tell and, those kind of things that we, always have been doing. We can continue to do them. We can do them more. I also, have been looking at in the studio that you have to bring in new talent because the new talent brings in new ideas. And there are ideas and there are ways of doing, and there is, which is much faster, much different, and the whole, psychology of learning and the ways of learning also is very different with the new talent. So it's a mix of, all of these things that I think will keep the learning at the artist level, the talent level, as well as for the studio, will be in the future.
I think it is unanimous, like the people have to train, upskill themselves. There is no question at all, where people have to spend some time and then they have to go on and do that. So if you look at the pyramid in terms of the self-starters, it will be a small percentage like where it be there. There will be a large percentage like where people have to really be pushed, and then they have to be come into the tune. There are two aspects. One is the technical and then soft skill, which has to be looked into it. Particularly on the technical aspect, particularly here in Pixstone, like what we do is we have trained the trainer, like where we have people like who get trained on certain aspect of it and then start disseminating the knowledge across the board, because there have been tremendous pressure for each and every artist to go on and do delivery. I think like they don't have time to go on and do that. I think they work late night and then they come early. So we create a platform where we want to share the knowledge base once in fortnight, so that like there has been a forum like where we go on and do it. And second aspect is like this industry has got a curse like where the soft skill or real leadership and management has not been really groomed. I think like it's more of getting the things done from the artist. After that, like we really don't do that. But when we want to grow and then when we want to build the organization, like there is a need for different levels of management skills to be done. We started investing close to about 18 to 24 months. Like we had a leadership program, like where we groomed a set of people like who have been ready to take up in the next level. So that's also a need for us to go on and do it. As an organization, we have been able to afford, but in small organization, it's difficult. But it's a part of it. I think like we have to really look at how we can go on and upskill the technical as well as the soft skill for one. I think it's a continuous process.
Quickly, I think most of them have spoken in some form or shape of what I'm going to say. But in terms of the two things about how do we upskill our own artists, obviously, if there are tools that are being implemented in the workflow, structured training to give them an understanding of what, how, and how that's being done. The second aspect of it is it's also we encourage people like the other speaker spoke to self-learn and learn a lot of those things which probably also have a small team which is looking at the third-party tools that are available that can be used. So-called R&D team, not necessarily to check what products are available, how we can implement that in our workflow and things like that. But at the same time, we also encourage individuals to also look out and look to see how they can upskill themselves apart from the structured training that is being offered in the facilities when there are new workflows or tools being done. For students who I'm guessing some of them will be in this audience, it's very important that then it's good to know good to know the tools, but you need to understand as years go by, 10 years down the line, 15 years down the line, the why and what is more important than the how, because the how of it is going to become defined by, automated processes and workflows that will come through. So they should focus on the why and what, which again, the why and what becomes the fundamentals, which is the fundamentals, whether it's an art, whether it's a storytelling, whether it's acting. So it all becomes about fundamentals. So as long as they have the structured fundamentals which are strong, then the why, that is the why and the what, because as tools get enhanced, the decision making is where the human intervention will be needed, and they need to keep that in mind and hone their skills and not become, we've said this for ages, not become operators, but understand the fundamentals, the art and the science behind it. The science is also important. And there are going to be a subset of people who will be successful, who are people who are really inquisitive, trying to play around with different tools and understand which tool is better for what purpose and things like that. Those guys are also going to be successful. But what is going to give you long-term employability from an Indian mass employment perspective is the fundamental aspect of it. The decision makers, or people who are there sitting and triaging those decisions, what route, what approach to take when the machine is throwing out options at you, are the people who are going to be gainfully employed in the long term. That's my take.
Thank you, everyone.